Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Celestial Realities. This is Dr. Celestine Star, and we are here today to bring you more information, more tips, and awareness for you to carry upon your way, upon your life, to understand how to move forward, how to stay in balance in this turbulent time. And so we brought to you a most magnificent sister, shamanist, priestess, who has steadfastly through the years, and I'm so honored to know you, my dear, since my first meeting, it's been over 10 years.
Oh, it's
We
great.
have Amanda Elo'esh, and she has the wisdom of the ages and how to step onto the path. You have two choices. One path leads over the cliff, control, domination, not knowing where you are, where you're going. And the other one is really to step by step come into your sovereignty and awakeness. So, Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself and then
Mm.
anything you want to share.
Oh my gosh, a little bit about me.
Oh, as much as you like, it's all good.
Would you like a current snapshot? I'll give you a current snapshot because I'm old, so I go way back.
Yes, ancient times.
Yeah. Well, I am living in Calistoga with my partner, Calistoga, California, Wapo, sacred Wapo land, with my partner, Dr. Matthew Gamble, and we have stepped into a paradigm of offering free gatherings, including entheogenic gatherings for our community. So, stepping outside the paradigms of money exchange and completely offering our gifts to be of service to the awakening of humanity and the healing of the trauma that's been activated for all of us recently and historically on a lot of different levels in a lot of different ways. And we're living on the prayer, just like the Bon Jovi song, we're living on a prayer and trusting that being of full service and full benevolence will help spark more and more and more of that for our community, for our friends, for all of our relations, and globally as well. So we offer, primarily we work a lot with entheogens, wachuma, cannabis, cacao, which is ceremonial chocolate, and other sacred medicines, sacred sacraments. But we also work with sound healing and breath work and guided meditation and bring diverse community together to learn, heal, and grow. And it's been really profound, really incredible. And I've been working with entheogens consciously for over 20 years and working with transformational ceremonies for over 20 years as well as a priestess. And I found that combining them is a really accelerated, amazing path when done in a safe and sacred way. So we're really excited to be stepping into this new paradigm, and uh, that's just a little snappy shot of where I'm at right now.
I love it. I've been to some of your magnificent and heart-opening ceremonies. And I have to
Mm,
say that you really hold the space.
mm,
For those of you out there that are looking for alternative ways of reality, of managing or stepping into your own life and going deep within yourself, you need a place that is very safe for you to expand and explore. And so I want to say that, witnessing different levels, the cacao ceremony is beautiful and gracious. All of the entheogenic processes that you hold, the sacredness, gives the person a place to just be themselves and explore. And that's what it's about, exploring deeply the different parts of ourselves. And yet, having somebody with your degrees, your MA degree, and working with your doctor, beloved, will assure that if someone has to um, be held emotionally or spiritually, that you are there. I mean,
Mhm.
I know of some people who are doing ceremonies that have no idea what happens if a person starts
Yeah.
to unwind or unravel, and
Yeah.
I spent 15 years as a guide. Part of my clinic was to be in 980 acres of the Omomiwak sacred land. And
Mm.
I believe
Beautiful.
being on sacred land, doing ceremony is so much appreciated. And so I know anything you do. So let's go a little bit deep into this word sovereignty. Can
Yeah.
you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that most of us probably who would be tuning in to into this conversation are aware of a lot of influences, I will say, influences and programming that have been woven into how we live our lives. Starting with, well, not starting with, but going way, way, way back to the Romans and their conquering other people, and the way that they subjugated was to create a school system that took children from their parents, put them in circumstances that were not stimulating, and reward and punishment, and um, we have adopted that school system. Western world has adopted that school system. There have been over the centuries, these ways of subjugating people that we aren't even really conscious. A lot of people aren't consciously aware of. I know that a lot of people of color, especially Black citizens of the United States, are aware of these influences, but in talking with a lot of people of privilege, they're not so aware. And that this mentality of power over has been woven into a lot of religious systems, governmental systems, school systems. Our English language was created to disconnect us from our sacred languages that were fully integrated with awakening and activating our super senses as we spoke. And so we've lost so much of that. And we are living in this mind frame for the most part of really being susceptible to the will and the desires of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the 1%, or but there's a lot that we're not really at choice in. And we know that even just as human beings, over 90% of our decisions, our thoughts, our behaviors are run by the subconscious. And then even that has been, our conscious and subconscious are colluding, hoping to feel some sense of control in this crazy time. And so even though we may have patterns of thinking and behaving that are perpetuating painful, repetitive patterns or a sense of feeling stuck, we don't necessarily know how to break out of it. And then add in the many different layers that some of us are aware of and some of us aren't: energetic, emotional, karmic, spiritual, auric fields, psychic fields. There's just so many different ways that we can be impacted by other beings, human and non-human. And you add it all up, and we have a good challenge on our hands to really feel a sense of sovereignty and being at choice in our lives. So, oh, I just said a mouthful, so I'm gonna,
Yeah,
gonna pause right
that's
there.
beautiful. I mean, you've given us a lot so let's just all take a breath into that. No, just take it in and feeling what she's speaking about, the influence that are outside, the programming from the time we're born, things that are coming back from the ancient times of Rome. We have the Christian, programming, privilege, so many things. So, what would beautiful sovereignty look like if you're in balance? Can
Mm.
what does it look like to be and feel sovereign, but yet to be able to interface with society? in a beautiful way and respectful. And, you know, how would
Yeah.
you?
I would like to know. I don't know if there are very many humans who are fully sovereign, but as somebody who's been seeking it pretty much my whole life since I was quite young, started to recognize that there was programming happening and had access to source wisdom and been curious about how much of it are the laws of being in third dimension and how much of it are the laws that have been superimposed
Mhm.
for power over. But what I would guess it would be like is well, I will say that I just from my background in psychology, working as a channel of source, anytime we're feeling negative feelings or thinking negative thoughts, that is a sign of something outside of us that is impacting our frequencies. And so I would say that being fully sovereign would be in being in a state of accessing elevation, inspiration, being able to feel fully co-creative with source, being able to make choices about our thoughts and feelings and behaviors that
There
have
you go.
positive outcomes, because the human nature at heart, I know a lot of people feel like there's a lot of shitty behavior out there with the humans, but that's the impact, that's the influence of this power over. And I feel like when we're truly sovereign, there's loving kindness, there is power there's community, there's connection.
Mhm.
There is no isolation, there is no competition, there's no, well, I got mine, and good luck with your, good luck with what,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
just, it's all the things that people have been talking about in the new age movement, but in ways I think in the past that have felt disconnected from people stuck in the paradigms. It's just felt like well, that's fantasy, that's make believe. But it's not fantasy, it's not make believe, it's our actual nature that just over the centuries we have been programmed to not believe about what's possible for ourselves. I also feel like when we're fully sovereign, we have access to a lot more than five senses. We've got
Mm.
our first eye, or third eye. We've got, we can be clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant.
Yes.
All of these things used to be just a part of being a human, uh, pre
Yes.
pre domination and pre
I love it.
subjugation.
You know, there's some gems in here. And so let's take a moment and look at that. I think, what jumped out at me was choice. And I tell people, you're standing on a pathway, and today is about pathways of awakening. And you can go in 360 degrees another direction, but it is your choice, your free will. And so having the free will, the choice to choose kindness over domination, to speak kindly, the compassionate communication, the way of caring, and as you say, community. And yes, it was spoken in the New Age community. I went to the New Living Expo, and I have to say that there was thousands of people there. And we started this movement, I guess, of gathering together and sharing our tools and our ways of being way back in the 80s. And I looked at so many people I knew, and there I was speaking and such, but I just felt a pride that there was it had continued, that little seed of, oh, let's get together and share all our tools and our knowing and our wisdom. And then had blossomed into this festival where every booth was something there to help you.
Mm.
Somebody was sharing, somebody was healing. We had come out of the woodwork after 2 years of, being closed in, and this feeling of, ex- expanding and sharing and loving. And I felt that the people who I was seeing we were seeing and offering um, their sacred knowledge was definitely on the timeline of truth and love, harmony, balance, compassion, and joy. I see there's two timelines, and I've been shown very clearly that we're living in a world that's so blended that you can't tell, unless you really know in your heart, and that's using those other senses. And
Yeah.
one is going over the cliff. It's going to continue moving towards control and domination and world slavery and such, but that's only one timeline. It's not, there's 7 billion Earths, we're all creating our own reality. Thank goddess. So you are creating your own reality, and working with Amanda really helps you to get in there and see what's yours, what belongs to mom and dad, what belongs to something else, your old tribal. And so I do recommend to come to Amanda and have her work with you on whatever level, whether it's just coaching or being present for healing, whatever. But we need this, we need to understand what our choices are. The other pathway is ascending or elevating the consciousness. And for many years, I saw the legend of the East and the West come together when the iron bird flies and the iron horse goes, which is the train and the airplane. When the Avalokiteshvara walks upon the earth, which is the Dalai Lama, then peace will come to the world, elevation of consciousness. So I thought, oh my goodness, everybody's going to be evolved. And it took me a while to realize that's not the case. It's like birds, not every mammal got wings. And so, elevation of consciousness is not across the board. And so the blessing is if you can hear the clarion call and step off the timeline of destruction and domination, and step onto the timeline where you are continuing beyond and into elevation of consciousness and enlightenment, because ultimately you become so enlightened. It's an alchemical process, and it calls for you to look at the shadow sides. And as you were saying, Amanda, really working with
Mm-hmm.
those patterns. And, I call it polishing the mirror,
Yeah.
and you polish one side and all of a sudden it turns and you're looking at something else about yourself. And it may take years, and it's okay, because that's what it's about. But have joy in that. And there's a joy in that. And so I'd like to uh, just invite everyone to take a moment and think within themselves, what is it that you're needing right now that would bring you into harmony? Just taking a breath into that and maybe touching your heart. And
Mm-hmm.
what is it that will bring you into harmony? And, a lot of people say, well, I'm in financial stress, or I'm having sickness in my family or in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Take a moment, just hold on to that. And then I'd like to ask Amanda, um, when people come to you with their trials and tribulations, you welcome them with your open hands, your open heart. What is some of the steps that they will experience with you
Mm-hmm.
going through the process?
Beautiful. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, we love these experiences of um, elevation. Especially like the entheogenic experiences that are very expansive and opening. And yet we do have trauma. All of us do. From the fact that we were born in a time with this power over. Even if we had loving, kind parents who are also programmed, we got
Yes,
taught things about how to be
yes,
human that our spirit knew wasn't true.
right.
It didn't feel
Uh,
right. But it was
yeah,
like you just have to obey, you just have to do this, and it's
just do as I
traumatizing.
say, not as I do.
Yeah. And you know in the ascension, it's not about um, avoiding or eliminating the parts of us that were traumatized, because we're whole beings. We have to be, we have to be in our wholeness, you know?
Mm.
And so it's about bringing that loving kindness and compassion and curiosity to the parts that are still in trauma, because those are the parts that are not at choice. Those
Oh,
are the parts that are stuck in the subconscious, that are in survival programming, doing what they have to do to get by, that our conscious mind couldn't come to terms with. And so it's like it's down there. And so what somebody experiences when they come to me is gentleness,
mm.
compassion,
Mm.
a curiosity, a support in bringing curiosity to where is that trauma showing up in the body, because that's usually the easiest, because we start to think about it and then we get lost in our heads, in our minds. That's a weird place. There's a lot of good stuff, but a lot of funky stuff.
That's
And
right.
we've been taught to kind of disconnect from everything else to
Yes.
feel safe. And so it's really about creating resource. And so it really depends on the person. If I'm working with somebody who has a lot of trauma and being in the body is traumatizing, then I meet them where they're at. You know, if I've worked with people who have done a lot of trauma work and they know how to manage that, and they're really into awakening their super senses, and you know, the untangling of the programming is no longer traumatizing, it's just easy and liberating. So I meet people where they're at, but we start out with compassion for the places and parts of us that are stuck in shadow, to recognize there's nothing actually wrong with them. They were just mistreated. They were mislabeled. They were misjudged. And
Mm.
so by others, and then, you know, over
Back
time,
to the self. Yeah.
ourselves as well, because we bought into it, and
Yes.
or we were just taught, well, this is not, you know, if I don't like something about myself or my experience, I just power through, or I anesthetize it, or I, you know, hide it, or what, do weird things to like control it, which is the power over paradigm, instead of like, hey, this, I'm a whole being, and here's a part of
Mm.
me that
Mm.
is out of alignment with my conscious choices. That's why I have heavy thoughts. That's why I have heavy feelings. That's why, you know, things are not going the way that I'm wanting them to go. So, like, what's out of alignment here? So, to bring love, compassion, and curiosity. And the curiosity is, how can I support you, this part of me? How can I support this part of me in coming to a place of trust and rest and letting go of the trauma? Like, how can we support this part in coming out of trauma, being loved, trusting, so that it can integrate with our conscious self, and then we have more of ourselves. And that's where, you know, so it's just where people are at, and I meet them. So I
You
work
meet them where they're at.
meet them where they're at, bring the
See.
resources, bring the love, the kindness, the gentleness, and really curiosity, because curiosity breaks us out of thought patterns that are limiting. But it's not curiosity like, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong
Right.
with you, or what's wrong with the
Right.
world.
You're
So
accepted.
I had this beautiful, if I could share,
Yes.
I had this beautiful experience with, it's not ayahuasca, but it is a plant that has DMT in it, and it was an ayahuasca-like journey. And I've had many, many, many of those experiences throughout my OG lifetime, and it was showing me this work that I do, and it was like, so I had not been feeling well. And it's this old virus that's in my system, and it was like activated, and I was feeling down, and I was like wanting to go to sleep, and it was like, this is, you wake up time, you can sleep later, it's time to wake up. And it was showing me my dualistic thinking, like I'm well or I'm
Mm.
not well, or I'm not
Mm.
well and I'm trying to do the, look at the thing to make myself well. And it was like, that is keeping your thoughts in this,
Spin.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Back
either
and
well
forth.
or I'm not well. And it was
Yes.
like, okay,
Polarized.
let's bring your whole being, not just your mind, but I feel like I have more access to more of myself when I'm in these altered states. Like, okay, let's be curious about what is the non-dualistic thing. It's like I am co-creating with source. I
Yes.
am co-creating with source, and I am at choice, at least in this moment.
Right.
I felt this opening of like I'm at choice in this moment, and it was showing me my thoughts, like in the dualistic thought of like how do I make myself well. It was like all kind of like ugly, and
Yeah.
like
Caught
meh.
up.
And then it was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's bring in something that's greater than me that wishes me well, or everything that's greater than me that wishes me well. Source, God, Goddess, the holy, whatever you want to
Bring it
call.
in.
We call them all. It's like
Yes.
how do I co-create? Let's keep my mind open. If I were able to see something bigger than what I was looking at in that dualistic perspective, and I can invite in something greater than myself, what is that? It's like it's wholeness, and it's like I get to be at
Oh,
choice. I get to be at
yes.
choice in my wellness, and I'm like I'm well. And guess what? I feel great. And you can feel wrecked after a night of ceremony like that. I felt great. I sat up all night singing, feeling amazing. I woke up a little tired the next day because I only got a few hours of sleep, but I was well.
Wow.
I was
That's
well.
an
Like I
amazing
had choice.
story. And there is that key that turns the lock, choice, and bringing it in. And also, we don't have to do it alone. We can call in these inner resources, these beings of light and the angelic presence. But I love bringing in the sourcial self. I mean,
And
that's one
it's
of
not just the
the
mental
tools.
choice. That's the thing. I
No,
think people
it's
get
all the way.
frustrated and like they were like, oh, they get a little sidetracked and frustrated because it's like, well, I choose to be healthy, but then I'm not. It's
Right.
like, well, that's why it's important to be on the inner quest to
Yes.
become really familiar with your shadow, with all your layers, as
It's
many
just
layers as
all.
you can get in touch with, because you're actually in charge of all of them, whether you're
I love it.
online with them or not. And so they're all impacting, they're all acting in your
Yes.
life, and they're doing their best actually to act in your behalf. But if they're traumatized, if they have been traumatized by limiting conditions and beliefs and ways of being over generations, or even just in this lifetime, they're acting out the
They
best
are
they
acting
can,
out.
and
Yes,
they're trying to get your attention. They're like, hey, I need your
they can
help,
be
which is
dominant.
pain and suffering. But pain and
Yes.
suffering are the parts of ourselves on whatever layer, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or phenomenal in our circumstances, trying to get our attention to say, I need help. I need the resources. So that's what I'm so grateful for, the entheogens, but they're not necessary for everyone.
Yes.
Breath
That's
work,
right.
meditation,
Right.
there's sound
Healing
healing. There are
bowl. Oh,
so
I
many
love sound.
different ways we can access, but opening, we do need help. Awakening beyond our five senses to tune in to all the many layers that make up who we are, that are functioning, whether we're aware of them or not, and creating our reality. And so it is choice, but it's not a mental choice. It's a whole being choice that makes
Mm-hmm.
those realities happen. So I think it's important to say that, because I've had a lot of people get really frustrated because they hear choice and they think mental
I think
choice.
mental. And I agree. I love what you were saying about the whole self. And I think that's what one of the missing factors is, when we go into our extrasensory perceptions, clairvoyance, clairaudience, you get really true uh, information for your life.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with people now, we do the galactic origins where we take people back to the first time you come to Earth.
Mm,
And then we take you back beyond that. And I have had so many people
mm.
come face to face with their divinity.
Beautiful.
And but before we take you on such a journey, we take a moment and we connect in with your primal awareness.
Mhm,
So when I say primal awareness, that's the part of your existence that's connected to the all-knowing. And
mhm,
it's very, very interesting that most of us don't even know that we're aware of utilizing that part of us. If I were to say, where's your car? How are your children? And immediately you get this image, you get this information, and you know they're okay. Sometimes, we have a thing where I say waterfall, and so they'll go to a waterfall. Now, what's interesting, they'll have a waterfall in the inner mind. It's not inside the brain. It's somewhere outside, and I'll say, well, have you been to this waterfall before? And they go, no, not in this lifetime. And almost everyone say, not in this lifetime. They actually say that. It's
wow.
something that's coming in. It's a thread that's coming in to acknowledge that there's something bigger going on here.
Mm,
But then we go up higher, above. Look at the landscape. Look at the earth. We go up higher still. And okay, so you haven't been above earth, and you haven't seen the earth from above. So it's not in the synapses, but you're being given the information. I ask, is it morning, noon, or night at the waterfall? And they know exactly what time it is. It's very interesting. So once
mm,
I have connected with that part of them that is beyond the critical thinking, the
yeah,
critical factor, because we have that critic, then we know that we can go,
yeah.
because we bring it into the body. We go, okay, let's bring in our primal awareness. Let's bring that awareness that gives us so much more. It goes beyond time and space. It gives you the information. And, to use it as a healing tool, I have found it has had tremendous help for people. And so I just wanted to thank you for sharing what you were talking about, the extrasensory perception for someone. So let's think about that now. So thinking about what you were holding on to, and just being open for a moment that there's parts of you that has all the answers. And just as we saw Amanda go, she shared with us the story of her receiving the information, and she opened to a different level of herself than the everyday going around. And I tell people the black box, the television, the phone, you gotta, sometimes it's good to put them down
Yeah.
and realize that you are the technology of all creation. You are the highest technology in all of creation.
Mhm,
And I won't say of all of creation, but the technology of our embodiment, all the way to the DNA, RNA complex, um, our breath, the emanation, our crystalline embodiment, all the elemental things that we are made up of
yeah.
are technology that we can only try to bring into focus. And so, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Any thoughts or questions, anything you want to bring to light?
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to do is just offer some things to meditate on, just keep the mind
Okay,
focused on. You could write them
okay.
down when you're feeling funky or stuck, but to imagine what would it be like to have beyond five senses? What would they be? Maybe I do have beyond five senses. What can I sense? Can I can I sense other things? Are there things that come to me that are ineffable? And to keep the mind open and curious. What would it be like to be completely at choice, beyond mental choice? But what would that be like? What would
Mm,
it be like to be aware of different layers of my being that go beyond my physical body? What would that be like? What if I was psychic? What if I was clear
mm,
audio? Just because we open our minds to it and it
Yes.
is actually there. We've just been conditioned to think it's not. And opening our minds to it and being curious about what would that be like helps
Yes.
us to at least be available to it. We can't necessarily control how fast we grasp it or, oh, I get it. But
Mm.
it at least allows it in timing that aligns with our own personal growth and development. I had this crazy experience. It wasn't even that long ago. It was within the past 10 years. I realized that almost all the time when I close my eyes, I can see something happening. And in the past, I just
Mm.
ignored it. Like they're actual images of things happening in the world someplace. And didn't necessarily make sense to me, but like, wow. And it's like that's a super sense, you know? And
Congratulations.
yeah, and just just keeping. It's like I always think of the story of Columbus coming to America, discovering America,
Discovering America,
discovering
Mr.
America,
Columbi, Mr.
and
Columbi. Yeah, 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 yeah.
and the shamans were the only ones that recognized the boats. They were the only
Right.
ones that could see them because they were more open in their senses. The other people that lived, the indigenous people that lived there, it wasn't that they couldn't see or their seeing was bad. It was just so beyond their concept of
They didn't have the synapses.
ability. It just didn't
Yes,
register.
right.
And so, like just taking that to heart and then also recognizing there's a correlation, stress, anxiety, trauma,
Mm.
literally limit our hearing, literally limit our vision, literally limit our ways of thinking. And
Love
so
it.
you take it on the spectrum, the more I can be loving and kind to myself, treat my body, my time, my life as sacred, and let go of the external pressures that are putting stress on me to fulfill the fate of the hamster wheel, being a
Mm.
obedient consumer, giving yourself permission to have a beautiful life, it doesn't require things.
Hmm.
You can have that and give that to yourself and start to see how things open up, in your field, in your senses, So we go from can't see, can't think, can't hear clearly, overstressed, overworked, overwhelmed, to I'm going to step off of that into this paradigm of my life is sacred and I don't need these other illusions of control telling me I got to do it this way, which is keeping me this limited, obedient, controllable human, into
Yes.
awakening my super senses. Everything that's greater than you that wishes you well has greater access to help you because they can intervene for
That's.
you because you are sovereign. So you have to make the
Mhm.
choice. And the more you choose that sacredness, the more you have access to the helpers from other higher dimensions. Just the
Oh
way it
my
works.
goodness.
They trust your sovereignty. And if
Yeah.
you choose to stay stuck, which is hard to feel like a choice when we've been conditioned for so long. But if
Yeah.
you choose to stay stuck there in that scarcity survival programming,
They cannot and will not
yeah,
intervene.
exactly. And so I'm here to as an invitation from source.
Thank
Your
you.
life is sacred, your time is sacred, your body is sacred. And
Beautiful.
if you trust treating your time, your life, your body, your mind, your consciousness as sacred,
Yes.
things will get better.
Love it. And that really, I love to take the gems out of what you're saying. And so let's take a breath into that. We're going deeper into the choice of sovereignty and awareness and awakening. And um, as you were speaking, two things came to me. And one was the time out in the forest. And I was working with a lot of executives who would come up from behind the orange curtain or, down in Los Angeles, in Orange County. And they would come with all of their layers of existence of who they were and what's going on, and I'm this and that. But when you go into the wilderness and you are in the pureness of nature, they soon discover that the outer shells of who they are does not relate at all, period. So there's a little bit of nervousness, you know?
Yeah.
And I would just hold space for them. And often they would break down crying because they would realize my jokes, I don't need them. I'm here with God. They would literally say, I'm here with the creator. I'm here with source. You know, and the cracking open of the heart. And, you know, they would hold their heart and they'd say, oh my gosh, you know, it's kind of painful, but I'm feeling for the first time. You do not know how honored to have been with so many men to, and it was specifically men, because women, our hearts are naturally, we feel, but they would tell me the painfulness of their heart opening. And there were times when it was entheogenic, and there were times when it was not, just a pure. And then over the years, once the heart opens, they are able to relate to their wives and their children. And, you know, one of them said, you know, am I allowed to have a beautiful lady? And I'm like, your choice, you know, are you opening yourself to this? Well, I feel like I could love her because I'm not just seeing with my eyes and not feeling. And so within a month, he was married and on his way to having a child.
Wow.
So, you know, this is that stepping off the cliff, building your wings on the way down, having a trusted person such as yourself, Amanda. I know without a shot, you know, I have brought myself to your ceremonies and you have held me as a sweet sister, and I just so appreciate everything that you're saying. And, you know, there was, so when you were speaking of really expanding yourself, the frequencies are rising.
Yeah.
We've gone, you know, if we are, this is Milky Way, and, you know, the earth does the ecliptic, and we were dead center on 12, you know, 2012. And that's when the clock started again. So we're now up above the Milky Way. We're getting all the gammas and the neutrons and all this, and we're getting solar waves. And our Schumann resonance, which is our normal sounding of the Earth, was 7.83 hertz. That hasn't been for several years now. What's been happening is, and I've been clocking it, you know, through the scientific websites that they have out of Russia, believe it or not, but the observatory of the Schumann resonance. And we're looking at 25, we're looking at 200, we're looking at up to 1,000 hertz of energy that the earth is vibrating, and we're in the middle of that. So what happens to us is that our receptors are taking much more in, and that intuitional field of the right brain is opening whether you like it or not, you know? And so whether you get with the program is shaking loose. You know, we've got these planets going back and forth. If the moon rises and brings up the tide, then rest assured these other planets are having effect on our bodies. And so what I'm seeing is more people having to face the reality of their intuition, face the reality that information's coming in faster, and what their thoughts are is manifesting. There's time slips. If you are saying, well, I'm going to go over here, but no, I don't think so. There might be a little glitch in your going where you need to go because you're thinking everything is immediate, you know, your vibrational thinking. So clearing the mind, you might say, where's my keys? And you'll find it in the dresser in another room that you never could expect, because there's a timeline glitch, because you doubted that you were going to go there. So something had to slow you down, you know. we're literally seeing that happen.
Mm.
And there's people that have spoken about this. Um, and I so appreciate them sharing their own truth about it. I think Gigi Young was one. Elizabeth April speaks about timeline glitching, and so
Mm.
I just want to breathe into that. Now, the last thing that I want to go into, because this is something you and we've always been connected to the spirit world. And so some of the workings of the entheogenic and also going to the inner mind, I take people to places where they're introduced to their guides, to their divinity, to inner resources. Can you tell me what the benefit is of connecting to your inner resources, and maybe some guides or some experiences of really maybe celestial beings or things like that? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll share, that working with entheogens is can be such an accelerated path because I meditated a while ago and like, why do you guys care? Like, why are you helping us so much, with all the crazy shit humans are doing? Like, why are you so loving and kind to us? What's so great about the humans? And what they showed me was that they are rooted, literally rooted in the consciousness of the interconnectedness of all things, that there is no separation. There's delineation of roles and shapes and sizes and frequencies, but we're all we're all connected, we're all impacting. And they're like, if you ask for help as a sovereign being, we're just going to work healing the part of the one that's sick, that's out of balance, that's diseased.
Mm.
So we're here to help all the people,
Mm.
that ask for it, because we won't do something to somebody that doesn't want it. But that's what we do. We hold that consciousness. And so we remind everybody of that. So that's why I love working with the entheogens, because they're a constant reminder. And again, they help to not just in my reminder, but a full on remembering of all my parts, like bringing more and more layers into alignment with that.
Mm.
Um, and the reason it's so important to do this inner work is because there's, again, I'll just say it again, more than 90% of our decisions, thoughts, and behaviors are run by the subconscious.
Mhm.
So if you want to be at choice, you better get familiar with what you're working with. Get to know yourself. You've got this intricate technology that Celestine was referring to, this beautiful divine technology. And we have been kind of convinced that we can't or shouldn't know, like a doctor needs to tell us about our health, and whatever, this person needs to tell me about this part of my reality. It's like, it's up to you. It's your vehicle, it's your body, mind, spirit complex. Like, get to know it. Get to know the difference between fear and intuition, you know? Get to know the difference and start to awaken. And then the more you get to clear, clean, take care of, organize, take out of trauma, love it all up, the more of you have, you're more energized, more likely to be healthy, clear-minded, access to beyond the five senses. So that's, the most valuable thing you have, like,
Yes.
is your car and getting better maintenance than your than your inner realm? Like,
Whoa.
you can be curious about that.
Absolutely. And I find that there's a less fear to walk into the future when you have the tools to
Yeah.
find your own answers. And
Yes.
yes.
Yes, because it's all the unknown. We don't know anything, and we're not in control except for of how we navigate. And
Mm.
you can't, again, you've got a lot of different parts of you that maybe you're not aware of. So if all you can actually control and know is your own body, mind, spirit complex to navigate all the changes and crashing paradigms and rebirths and new emerging thing, now's the time.
Now's the
Last,
time. So
last
how do they get
century
in?
was the time. Just keep going.
Absolutely. So how does our beautiful, beloved audience get in touch with you? Those people are interested.
Hmm.
How would we get in
Uh,
touch with you?
Send me an email, Amanda Elo'esh. It's right here,
Yeah, put it
Amanda
in the,
Elo'esh at
yes.
all one word, Amanda Elo'esh at gmail.com. Or if you want
Yes,
to check me out before getting in touch, kind of do a little more research, look at my testimonials or whatever. Um, you can go to my website, amandaeloesh.com.
beautiful. So we'll put it also in the YouTube down below, and you'll be able to get in touch. And I want to thank you so much, my dear. It has been just a glory for us to get together and share, and it's been
Yeah, it's been way too long. It's so good to see your face, see your
thank
smile. Hmm.
you. All right, everyone. This is Celestial Realities, and thank you so much. And we will see you in the higher realms. Take care. Bye.